Should we be surprised that the first big party Dwight Manfredi throws in Tulsa ends with a near shootout and a body count? This week's Tulsa King finds the general and his crew celebrating the grand opening of Montague Distillery, an event that comes to an abrupt end when Jeremiah Dunmire decides that his competition is getting a little too close for comfort. The tyrant of Tulsa yells a lot and takes an axe to a cask, and he doesn't even know about the bloody dead body in the cellar. And then, as if Dwight's day already hasn't gone badly enough, a member of his extended crew visits with a sobering warning. Normally, these kind of interactions roll right off Dwight's back like water off a heavily armed duck. But this time, the conversation leaves Dwight highly unsettled. Has Manfredi gotten himself into something far deeper than he anticipated? On the day of Montague Distillery's planned opening, Jeremiah Dunmire summons the state's attorney general to his study. After reminding the politician that the Dunmires underwrote his campaign, Jeremiah orders him to send an inspector to the distillery and shut that filthy event down. If that doesn't happen, he threatens, things will get very bad. Elsewhere, Vince calls Bill from New York, asking questions about Dwight's booze business. Bevilacqua tells him to buzz off, but no dice. Quiet Ray asked this, not me, Vince says. He's a curious man. Though Bill doesn't give Vince anything, he immediately finds Dwight to let him know what's up. Quiet Ray wants me to turn on you, Capice, he says. Then, in quick succession, he mentions that one of his wire places just got raided and that Armand is still missing. Might he have flipped and started helping the feds? Dwight is annoyed with all of it, and slightly distracted by the upcoming opening, but Bill wants him to pay attention, because a war with New York is entirely possible. The general and the bomber meet at the Bread, too, Buck, with Deacon saying that he likes to know as much as possible about his clients. Dwight doesn't have time for this, he's forced into the role of mafioso looking to hire a killer, remember, and he's also late for the distillery party, so he pushes Deacon to get down to business. The terrorist asks a lot of questions about the size of the desired blast and the identity of its intended target. Dunmire, he asks in surprise after Dwight tells him. The bourbon maker. Then he quotes a price of $500,000, with half paid before the work gets started. Irked, Dwight goes into the bar's back room and pulls the bills from a safe, delivering them to Deacon in a satchel. You're not a Fed, are you? Deacon asks right before he leaves, then says he was just joking. Either way, Dwight is not amused. First off, a super quick recap of Episode 5, On the Rocks, because it sets up everything for Episode 6. Dwight Manfredi and his crew are finally launching their Montague Distillery with that stolen, recovered, 50-year-old bourbon called the 50. The party's buzzing, Bodie and Grace nailed the PR, Bigfoot's showing off his ice sculpting skills, earning him the nickname Yeti, and even Margaret's there with Cal Thresher in tow. But of course, nothing goes smooth in Tulsa. Jeremiah Dunmire pulls a total power move by leaning on the Attorney General to send a corrupt inspector to shut things down. The inspector gets squished under falling barrels in a freak accident, thanks to Bigfoot's clumsiness, and now the crew's got a body to deal with. Dwight tells them to stage it as an accident for Bodie to discover in the morning. Meanwhile, Dwight's secretly picking up a bomb from the watchmaker, aka Deacon, the explosives expert, to hit back at Jeremiah for burning down his wind farm earlier in the season. Then, the party crashes hard when Jeremiah shows up with his posse, the AG, and some sheriffs. They destroy a barrel of the precious bourbon, brag about ruining Dwight's rep, and walk out like they own the place. Tensions peak when Bill Bevilacqua confronts Dwight about shady dealings and suspicions of betrayal. Dwight pulls a gun on him, but Bill calls his bluff and leaves, only to get swarmed and arrested by federal agents at a stoplight. Boom, episode ends on that cliffhanger. On screen, key images or text bullets of recap points. Now, what can we expect in episode 6? Tack. Let's break it down scene by scene, no holding back. Spoiler alert, this EP's all about loyalty tests, a brutal ambush, and Dwight facing his past in the most OG way possible. The episode builds to Dwight cornered in an abandoned oil rig, Jeremiah and Cole closing in, Musso's feds circling like vultures. Dwight's bleeding out, flashing back to his prison days with Pops, the OG reference. He calls in a favor from an unlikely ally, Bill Brewer, who hates Jeremiah more. Boom, a hail of gunfire from Brewer's boys turns the tide. But the real gut punch? Tina walks in on Dwight mid-deal, gun in hand, and whispers, "It's over." Does she pull the trigger? Trailer cuts to black on her finger trembling. She doesn't shoot, it's a fake-out to force Dwight legit. But Cole escapes, setting up episode 4's manhunt. This ending screams, family first, forcing the general to evolve or die. Jeremiah made it clear in the premiere that he was going to be an obstacle, burning down Theo's country manse, with him in it, as revenge for selling his distillery to Dwight. And in the true manner of someone used to having things their way, Jeremiah isn't subtle about who was to blame. His goons brag about it in public. He and Cole show up at Theo's funeral. The whole thing's a theatrical message to Dwight, a way to compel him to take the money, 3 times what he paid, that Jeremiah is offering for the distillery. But Dwight doesn't take kindly to threats, and he's no fool either. If Jeremiah is offering that much for a distillery that hasn't turned a profit in years, there has to be a reason. The clue's in the title, The 50. Cleo reveals that Theo was sitting on a batch of 5-decade-old vintage bourbon that can fill 250 bottles at thousands of dollars a pop. Jeremiah knew it existed, but not where. It's the profit payload that Dwight needs to justify the risks associated with the booze business, and it's a compelling enough fortune to sway Bill to get in on the action to help with distribution. Even Cal Thresher, now a gubernatorial candidate, is reluctantly in Dwight's pocket, there to smooth over any complications with a few political favors should the need arise. That it feels like a win, but is it really? Tulsa King Season 3, Episode 2 reintroduces all of these key players but makes it very clear that they can't be relied upon. Bill is still on conspiratorial terms with Vince back in New York, whose takeover of the Invernizzi family seems to have backfired, and Cal would just as soon have Dwight killed as work with him. And everyone seems to know that Jeremiah means business. He's a credible threat, and he has no shortage of targets he can lean on to hurt Dwight. He sends Cole and some goons after Mitch, and while that ambush backfires, it proves he's willing to take action. Cole also seems to target Spencer at the end of the episode, who may prove a weak link. Then there's Bodie, whose lust for revenge is preventing him from making peace with Bill's men, and Tyson's father, Mark, whose reluctant agreement to fix the distillery's pipes might count as collusion as far as someone like Jeremiah is concerned. What I'm curious about, at least for now, is how all these major players and conflicting allegiances can all fit together into a coherent season. The only real downside of The 50 is that it all unfolds at such a clip that it can feel as if individual moments don't have much space to breathe. This is fine when it comes to, say, Tyson's relationship with Mark, since that has been ebbing and flowing since the very first season, but Mitch and Cleo, by comparison, feels a bit more forced. There's also a subplot involving Goody trying, hilariously, it must be said, to track down Armand, but one has to wonder whether we need yet another angle to be concerned about. Time will tell. If I had to make a prediction, I'd say that several main characters probably won't survive this season, and it wouldn't surprise me if at least one was killed off sooner rather than later to really set the stakes. Theo's death was tragic, but we just met him. If Jeremiah's whole thing is hitting close to home, everyone in Dwight's inner circle should be worried, and the vibe this season is giving off thus far is that it won't be pulling any punches. Flashback montage shows Mitch's subtle leaks to Dunmire for a cut of the action, driven by resentment over Jimmy's death and feeling sidelined. Dunmire monologues about old money versus your street scraps, then signals Russell to rough up Dwight. Dwight fights back ferociously, flips a table, cracks a bottle over a goon's head, but gets outnumbered. He escapes barely, bloodied, stealing a ledger proving Mitch's betrayal. Back at HQ, confrontation time, Mitch confesses, tearful, "You promised us the world, Dwight." Dunmire offered security. Dwight doesn't kill him, yet, cold mercy, "You're out. But if you breathe a word." Cue Mitch's exile, staring at the crew like a ghost.